Forgiveness can be incredibly challenging, especially when we feel the pain caused by another so deeply. It's easy when this happens to fall into a cycle of hurt and resentment. Fortunately, God does give us a way to heal and find peace. So today we are going to look at God's way to forgive and move forward. Recently, I had went on vacation for my daughter's 21st birthday, and I went with my family, and included in this was my daughter's father, who was my ex-husband, and his new girlfriend. And I had to reflect on, all the forgiveness that had led us up to this point where we were able to celebrate as a family our daughter. And, so my ex-husband, he had left for another woman. It was an early marriage. So we were married at 20 and he left when I was 28. And there was so much pain and suffering and healing that I had to really move through in order to be able to do what we just recently did as far as this vacation together. We have been so blessed to have been able to share tons of experiences with our children. And I will tell you, there's no way that I could have done that without the grace and the power of God helping me through that forgiveness. Sometimes forgiveness is hard because we feel like the unrighteous are getting away with everything, and they're living on top, and here we are stuck with all of this pain and suffering. And sometimes we even feel like we try and we're doing everything right, and this person who is doing unkind things and selfish things, whatever the case may be, they're off fancy free, living their best life, and here we are with nobody to fight for us. And we can even feel like that as a believer in God. Sometimes we can just get so deep into our hurt and our pain and just feel so alone. But we are not alone. God is with us, and we just have to remember that and lay all of these burdens at his feet. We sometimes have an idea of how we think God should handle things, but I promise, he promises, all we have to do is stay silent, to stay still. There's a verse where it says that he will fight for us. All we have to do is stay still. And this is true. And sometimes, the Bible talks about what we reap, we sow. That is true. That sometimes it takes a while for those things to transpire. In the Bible, the story of Job, he suffered a great deal before he came out, where it showed God's favor. God always had his hand on him, but, Satan had his time with him. And this life, there is suffering. Jesus suffered for us. So, our God knows suffering, and he loves us, and he stays near to the brokenhearted, and he will help us. My grandmother told me when I was a little girl, she was talking about my grandpa. He was dying of leukemia, and she said, you think when these things happen that you'll never be able to get through them. But she said, but somehow God gives you the strength, and you do. So whatever your pain and suffering is, I promise you, if you give this to God, he will get you through this. He will. You just have that faith, and he will restore righteousness. It will be set right. We cannot go and do any sin will have its repercussions eventually. So if somebody has done wrong unto you, it will at some point God will make that right. And he is there for you. So you just turn to him, allow him to be your shield, your armor, and you are going to be okay. You are going to get through this. But truly, just every day, lay it at his feet. When you're having those hard days and you're just feeling the pain of what somebody else has done to you, has caused that pain, that suffering, lay it at his feet. If you have to do it several times a day, just do it. Lay it at his feet. He hears those cries and he will help you. So remember, we are not alone. Give it to God. It says in Philippians chapter 4, verses 13, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthen me. So remember that. All things you will be able to do. You will be able to forgive. Satan does not want you to forgive. And the demonic, that is real. They do not want you to forgive. They want that anger, that bitterness to fester inside you. Don't allow somebody else's careless, selfish, evil actions to take away from the light of God. That the whole don't allow that to fester and live inside you. Give that away, release that. Lay that burden at God's feet, at Jesus's feet. You don't need that, and it will be okay. If there was only one thing I could tell somebody struggling to forgive, and there was just one piece of advice I could give, it would be to practice empathy. And the reason I say this is because this was the biggest thing that has helped me to heal from so much hurt. When I picture somebody that has hurt me, not picture, when I understand, when I have the opportunity to learn about maybe why they've done what they've done, and I can really put myself in their shoes and think about it, it doesn't make them so much of a villain, right? Like it helps me to be understanding of their humanness. And I will say, empathy doesn't excuse wrongdoings, but it does help to foster some grace and soften that anger that sometimes we can carry inside of us. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Shack. There's a book on it, but this guy, he was abused by his father, and he was very angry at God. And in this movie, the Holy Spirit speaks to him and is like, well, you think you could do it better, what about for this boy? And they show his father, who was abusive, right? But they show him as a little boy being abused by his own father. And he's like, do you think that you should, I forget, it's been a long time since I saw the movie, but he felt like God should have been harsher on his father, punished him more. But then when they showed him his father as an abused child, he says, do you think we should do that to this boy? And he's like, well, wait a minute, like, he's a child. What do you, but God sees, this is where it's the supernatural perspective of God, right? He knows all of our hearts. He knows all of our experiences. He knows all of our pains and our sufferings and our struggles. So sometimes the people that hurt us, usually when you hurt somebody, you are coming from a broken place. What is that saying? Hurt people hurt people. So when I was a little girl, 4 years old, I was molested by a family member. And this family member was a teenager when this had transpired. And I don't feel that I have carried any of that. How do I say this? I don't feel like I have carried any of that experience with me. I obviously know it happened. I told my mother, I do remember one time, but I don't feel like I carry the pain of that experience. And part of the reason why I don't believe that I carry any of that is because that family member was severely abused when he was young. And I know about what happened to him. And I have empathy, plain and simple. I feel really bad for what happened to him. Doesn't mean what he did to me was right, but because I'm able to have that understanding of him and his human life, it really has helped me to release some of that. Empathy, and it can really free you of anger and resentment. It can help you to have a little softness and a little compassion. It'll soften that bitterness and that festering, and it'll free you at least. And it takes you away from that pain, and then you understand this is not about you. This is about their suffering, and God's got to deal with it. So that's just something that's truly helped me so much. So if you are able to know some of the history of whomever has hurt you, try to think about that and what led them to do some of the things that they've done to you, and just pray for them and have that compassion. But again, it doesn't mean you're saying it was okay for them to do what they're doing. That does not mean that at all. It's just you're giving them the grace that God gives us. He forgives us, so we forgive others. And that can really, really free us in life forever and ever. God is our vindicator. It says all throughout the Bible to forgive as He forgives us, and He will handle our enemies. He promises that He will fight our battles for us. We do not have to do that. It is not for us. So you just move through, your life. I know that it is natural to feel like you want revenge, like you want to seek justice. I totally understand that. I think we feel so sad sometimes and so weak and so defeated that it almost feels more empowering to kind of all of a sudden turn that pain into anger. And it's like, oh, I'm going to show you. But do not waste your time on that. Do healthy things. Take that focus where you're wanting to focus on them and seeking revenge. Take that focus. Go work out. Get healthy. That will release endorphins. It'll make you feel really good about yourself. It'll make you feel confident. Maybe seek professional help, somebody to talk to. I've done that before, and I really enjoyed just having somebody weekly to talk to. The other thing you can do is having a journal. I would write, and I still do this. This is how I write in my journal. I write letters to God. So I tell God everything that's going on that I feel. I talk about my anger, my hurts, my everything. And I just give it to Him. And so I'm doing two things at once, right? I'm kind of exhausting that bitterness. And then the second thing I'm doing is I am laying it at Jesus's feet. So that's a thing that you can do, but let Him handle your enemies. Anybody who has hurt you, He promises He will do it. Lean into Him. Trust that He's got you. Do good, healthy things for yourself, and everything will work out. What we all reap, we shall sow. It is in the Bible. It's true. So if somebody has done wrong unto you, don't match what they're doing. You do not want to be like that. Satan, the demonic, they want you to go to battle, but we don't want to do that. We want to trust in God and have our faith in God and know that He's got this fight for us. So just stay away from focusing on the pursuit of revenge, and just stay in faith in the Lord, and just know everything. He's a righteous God. Everything will be okay. Forgiveness is not always easy, and it does not always mean reconciliation. It's about freeing yourself from the bondage of that pain and that suffering and that resentment. It's about trusting in God that He will work things out for His good. Sometimes we go through these painful experiences and we have no idea that later on God is going to take that experience and He's going to have you help somebody else. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's a group of people, maybe you write a book, maybe you speak to crowds of people. You really don't know how He's going to take this and mold it into something great and something that can heal a lot of different people. We just don't know. And that's where we trust in God. And that's where, so you give it to God and you do not lean on your own understanding. You're like, God, okay, I'm trusting in you. I don't understand this. I'm hurting, Lord. Please put peace in my heart. Help me to forgive. You know, you give all of that to Him. You can tell Him everything that you feel, but then we just trust, and that's when miracles happen. And a lot of times it is not until later on that you look back and you're like, wow. And you can even be sometimes grateful for those hard experiences, those painful experiences. Sometimes they change the trajectory of your life so much. A lot of times those painful circumstances and experiences, they will actually cause you to do things in a way that you never would have thought you would do. Heal and seek healing in a way that you wouldn't have done had this experience not had transpired. So lean on God, have faith, not on your own understanding, and forgiveness is completely possible. And just seek His peace, just seek Him and His wisdom, and everything will be okay. If you like this video, I ask that you like the little like button, and if you haven't already, I ask that you subscribe. I appreciate you so very much. I hope you guys are all having the most beautiful day. God bless.